BYU was off this week, but that doesn't mean that Utah didn't still find a way to needle the Cougars, okay? Yeah, we've got Holy War controversy here. Maybe not controversy, but we've got the Holy War creating some headlines. Ripple effects are pretty fascinating on this one, okay? So BYU fans, listen up. I would argue the most interesting result of the weekend of the Big 12 actually wound up being UCLA, New Mexico, for a couple of reasons. One, it raises the question, what exactly is going on with Utah? Is Utah's week 1 win over UCLA something we should value nearly as much anymore? Look, it's worth something. They went in there and pummeled another opponent on the road. And as evidenced by the fact that I just mentioned the Iowa State game in Jonesboro and exactly what just happened to Utah this week at Wyoming, like that's not always a given that is going to happen. But, this had people like Josh Pate putting Utah in the top 10 at number 8. And now UCLA lost 35-10 to New Mexico and fired its coach, right? So DeShaun Foster is out just 3 games into his second season, which is pretty crazy. But what do we make of Utah now? Okay, it's not a great win. It's a solid win. Does that translate to they can go beat this team that looks like the freaking Monstars that is Texas Tech that has just been blasting people through the first 3 weeks of the season? So there's that part of it that makes it very fascinating. If we're just thinking about the context of not only the Big 12 race, but what we have on tap next week with that huge top 20 matchup now between Utah and Texas Tech in Salt Lake that Big Noon kickoff will be there for. Big Noon Saturday crew will all be there. So that's one discussion, and I will talk a little bit more about that later on in the show. But how does this all affect BYU? Well, I think you all can see the parallel now between the result of that game, New Mexico just smoking UCLA, being the final straw, the nail in the coffin for DeShaun Foster. It's now opened up that job. And you can't escape coaching carousel season. You can't escape conference realignment season. Hide your children, hide your wife. You just can never get away from it. We are in week 3. It's September 14th of the college football season, and yet here it is. And I'm having to scan hot boards for Big 12 coaches. There were 2 Big 12 coaches mentioned for UCLA, by the way. It's not just going to be Kalani Sitake. I just want to mention, though, that it's not only the New Mexico game that got DeShaun Foster fired. It's been a season in which they also lost at UNLV, and they got completely destroyed opening night by Utah, a team that, if you're UCLA's athletic director, you may be looking at this like, well, this Utah team was 5-7 last year. They just marched right in, punked us 43-10. Like, what? We have no fans. Now there are going to be even fewer fans coming to the rest of the games. And then they go out and lose to back-to-back G5 teams, the second of which was by 25 points at home, right? That set the wheels in motion, okay? So if you're doing the Charlie Day on the board, trying to connect the yarn and the tacks everywhere, I mean, that's what it is. Isn't that the Holy War at its finest? Like, Utah starts this whole thing by kicking off UCLA's season with a total thud at the Rose Bowl in front of the home fans when there already may have been doubts about DeShaun Foster. I mean, they just make Nico Iamaleava's life a living hell. And now that situation's not working out very well at all. And it gets to the point where that snowballs on UCLA so fast that they're firing the coach in week 3. And now you start bringing up hot boards. You start getting lists of candidates from ESPN and The Athletic. And bam, there's Kalani Sitake's name. I mean, to be honest, a little bit of 5D chess from Utah there, perhaps, right? That's what makes rivalries great. If you're curious what was said here, so it's ESPN and The Athletic. As I mentioned, this is two sources. This is not random tweet on the internet says Kalani Sitake could be the next head coach at UCLA. This is The Athletic and ESPN. If you're curious about the order in which they brought these coaches up on ESPN, Kalani Sitake was listed as the number 2 candidate. There was no specific author of the story, by the way, if you're curious. Like, this wasn't directly attributed to like Thamel or anything like that. Just said ESPN staff, number 2 behind Tony White. Okay, so ESPN lists Tony White first. He's a UCLA alum. He's now the Florida State defensive coordinator, very highly thought of in college football circles. He's going to get a job at some point. He was number one, but number two is Kalani Sitake. And here is what was said. It said, quote, he's fairly established at his alma mater and would need some assurances beyond the Big Ten membership to leave a good situation in Provo. But Sitake, also in his 10th year at BYU, might want to restart his clock. Sitake knows the West Coast and California recruiting scene. It also said Sitake is 74 and 43 as an FBS coach and would bring an identity of physicality and toughness to Westwood. All right, so to react to that, if I'm UCLA, that's exactly the type of thing that I would want and need. Like UCLA needs somebody who's going to bring physicality, toughness, and just substance. Kalani Sitake's a guy about substance, man. That is a substantive coach, not flash, which is what I know everybody would say, well, it's LA and UCLA. Come on, man. You need a little flash. No, you don't. UCLA needs a grinder. UCLA needs someone who's going to get in there and be tough and bring in 3-star prospects and coach them up and create a culture of toughness, because that is the last thing. It's the furthest thing from what UCLA is at the moment. So I would love the hire if I were UCLA. I would definitely target Kalani Sitake if I were UCLA. I will give you my opinion in just a moment on what I would think about this if I were Sitake, okay? First, I want to drop in, this is what The Athletic said. So The Athletic had Kalani Sitake as the third coach mentioned on their list. Number one was D'Anton Lynn, which that was the vibe I got early on would probably be the leading candidate that's going to get pushed the most here. He's USC's defensive coordinator. He passed up the Penn State defensive coordinator job this offseason to stay in LA. So clearly he's a guy that likes LA. He's a UCLA alum too, I believe. So D'Anton Lynn, somebody that could get that job. Number two, and more on this in a moment, number two on the list from The Athletic was Dave Aranda at Baylor. Okay, so yeah, I've got thoughts on that. But first, let's finish the Kalani Sitake piece of this, okay? So what Bruce Feldman, this is Bruce Feldman writing here, what he said about Kalani Sitake in The Athletic was, quote, he's done a terrific job leading the Cougars. Last year, Sitake's team went 11-2. He's a proven winner with strong West Coast ties, and he knows how to build tough teams, something that will make him attractive. Would he leave a good job in the Big 12 with strong resources and a lot of momentum for what appears to be one of the shakier situations in the Big 10? I'm not so sure. Well, that's a pretty good take, Bruce Feldman, because I'm not so sure either. In fact, why? Why? The only thing that I will say here is I don't personally know Kalani Sitake. If he has a crazy affinity for LA or there's something family related that would make that appealing to him, then that's something I don't have knowledge of. But if I'm just operating on what is widely available, what we know about football and the situations here, I have no idea why you would ever leave BYU to go take this job. The only tangible football related argument here that you could come up with, my humble opinion, would be the ultimate ceiling, the pinnacle ceiling at both jobs, simply because UCLA is in the Big Ten, simply because they are based in LA. I suppose there is a higher ceiling at that job if you were to be able to reach it just because of those factors. But what are the odds that you're able to climb the ladder that high? That is a shaky ladder. You're not getting up there. The building may be taller. It may be a skyscraper and be totally way up there, but you do not have the tools to climb up that. UCLA is not equipped to do that, to reach those high highs, man. That athletic department, since 2019, has built up $219 million of deficit, okay? Very poor from a financial standpoint. They are not nearly as all-in committed financially as their crosstown rival or anybody else in the Big Ten. The athletic director, Martin Germond, people think he may not have the full ability to make this hire, and two, may just get fired anyway pretty soon. So you might be a sitting duck pretty quickly after you would take this job in terms of who your boss is, or your boss may not have been the one that actually wanted to hire you. Your peers, and now in the Big Ten, when we're talking about resources and commitment, man, it's Ohio State, USC, Penn State, Oregon. Like, what? Good luck. Good luck. Nobody goes to the games. It's not an engaged fan base. You'll have to deal with crazy travel, which I know, I mean, Provo to other places in the Big 12 is not exactly, that's not a cakewalk, but it's going to be worse coming from LA, going all the way to Piscataway and, traveling to road games at Maryland. The grind of that is going to be even tougher. That is not a good job, man. I mean, that is not a good job unless you are someone that just loves LA, which, I mean, there would be plenty of people out there that aspect of it is appealing to. That is not a good job at all. So I would not take it. I understand why his name is being listed there. If I were UCLA, I would love, love, love him as a candidate. Love him as a candidate. But I don't think there's any way he would take that job.